Welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm your host, Justine Reichman. With me today is Wade Johnson. She is the co-founder of Exploradora Coffee. Welcome, Wade.
Thank you, Justine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show to learn a little bit both about you, your journey, and Exploradora Coffee. So for those that are not familiar with Exploradora Coffee, can we just start there and give them a sense of what it is, what Exploradora Coffee is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Exploradora Coffee was sort of my mom and my brainchild. We are a coffee roastery, and we source exclusively from women farmers all around the globe. And we also donate proceeds to a nonprofit that provides guaranteed income to mothers living in low income housing.
Wow, that's amazing. I love all the ways that you give back in this, in offering coffee out there, but also giving back to women and supporting women. So what is that charity that you support?
It's called Springboard to Opportunities. They're originally based in Jackson, but they work with residents kind of throughout the South. And Aisha Niandoro is the founder of Springboard, and she's really championed guaranteed income for communities all across the U.S.
Wow. And how did you learn about them?
I actually, when we first started Exploradora, I wanted to have some element that like gave back to communities in the U.S. So I just started looking for founders of nonprofits in general who had interesting stories, and Aisha was mentioned in an article, and I just thought that the whole idea, their program is fundamentally resident driven, so they meet residents of low income housing and they ask them, what do you need? And then they provide the resources. So I thought that was a really empowering program in general. And then when I looked to reach out to them, I noticed that they were based in Jackson, Mississippi, which is where I'm originally from. So it
Mm,
all just felt like very serendipitous. And that's how I originally found them.
wow, that's great. And I think it's so nice that when you were launching your company, that this was part of the ethos
Yeah.
that you were building. So that's really great. So let's go back to the beginning. What is your specialty and background?
Kind of all over the place. I did grow up in coffee. My stepdad's been a coffee roaster for 26 years. So basically, my whole life, I've been exposed to the coffee process. But before I went into coffee, I actually worked in politics as a campaign manager, particularly in a lot of more rural communities. And then I had a short stint in executive recruiting for tech companies. And then I decided, I got exposed to the corporate world. It was really great training grounds. And it was sort of time to transition into the coffee world, which is where I've always really enjoyed being.
That's quite a story because I mean the things that you've experienced are all so different, right? Politics and tech, but equally creating a foundation working for other people and other companies, I think enables us to build a skill set that we can then take with us. And it creates all sorts of boundaries and goals and allows you to, in my opinion, be able to be more thoughtful about how you're doing as opposed to just, okay, let me just figure out how we're going to do this. But you have a framework that you've built up from knowledge over the last couple jobs. Would you say that that is a fair statement?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like every job I've kind of just learned different guidelines of how to do things. One, I've had amazing mentors in every single job I've had, which is something that I actively seek out in anything I do. But yeah, like going into coffee, I took, especially the tech world, it's so data driven. And I worked for this really great company called True Search that they just, everything they do is excellent, and they provide like a white glove service. And I feel like learning it just from the tech side and then bringing it over to coffee, I now work with restaurants. But having that foundation like definitely comes through and offers like, the restaurant world is very specific. It's a little more, sometimes a little bit more sporadic. And the corporate background sort of gives me like a little bit more regimented approach that I think helps me stay on top of things where so I might not always do that if I was only exposed to one world.
Yeah, I agree. And people have come up with tips and tricks and, ways to house information and ways to, connect with your team on a weekly basis that when you use those things, and I'm only speaking from my experience, I felt like I had more tools in my toolbox, so to speak, even though that's kind of cliche, but it gave me those things that I could then integrate to my team and
Yeah.
allow us to be more efficient and effective as opposed to making it up all on my own, right? We're not really making up these things from scratch. We're taking what we had before and we're making them better to make them our own. And I think having had that experience, I think it gave me a better jumping off point. It
Yeah,
gave me,
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, and you know what worked? The worst thing I remember, like my very first job, I was a campaign manager in Mississippi, and I, was really empowered to do a lot of stuff in that job. But I was creating all the organization and outreach, and I was a kid, and I look back at the stuff I created, which is, good practice for me to be creative. But, had I been through a couple more campaigns and maybe learned from somebody else, a lot more stuff could have been done a lot quicker, probably.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, how large is your team?
Oh, it's very small now. It's me. It's very much family business. It's me, my mom, my stepdad, and Jack are my co-roaster. We both roast together.
So that was my next question was when you went back into coffee and your stepfather had his own business initially,
Mhm.
right? And you came at this with a different perspective. What role did that play? And at what point did you guys decide to work together?
So it's been a journey. When we originally started Exploradora, we actually did it. We started in COVID, and it was really like a just a mechanism for extra revenue, so that my stepdad's business, their employees could. They never laid off anybody during COVID, and this was just an extra thing to make more money during COVID. But then it sort of like took off a world of its own. So Exploradora, we were toll roasting. So we were paying his company to roast our coffee. And we're a separate entity, but we still had to work with their team to really dial in the roasts I wanted. And as it's grown and developed and it's grown in different markets, um, we actually just opened up our own roastery in Oxford just last month. And all not completely severed our ties with them because I know everything because of that team. But we were able to like kind of break off and create our own thing. And luckily, we had a baseline of 26 years of roasting knowledge to start our own. And now it's been cool because my stepdad's funny. I never work for him. And it's this interesting dynamic of like, he's very much an entrepreneur and founder. And I'm trying to learn how to be that too. And he's trying to like let go of the reins to let me go do it. And so it's been like a lot of training and patience and grace and okay, like I respect what you know, but also this is my opportunity to show you what I've learned. And he's technically not fully part of the team, although we completely rely on him for so much information. We call him like our coffee consultant because he knows everything. So that's kind of the transition. But now I trained how to roast, which has been cool because I've grown up always seeing it and sort of knowing how it works. But now I'm actually like creating the profiles, understanding the machine, and it's a different machine than he's used to. So we've had this transition of me showing him how to use it, which I actually think it was very exciting for him. Like you could see he was really proud about it. So yeah, that's how to how the transition worked.
Got it. So now he's back at his company and he just offers insight really for you, who's spearheading Exploradora with your mom. And I believe
Yes.
you said Jack.
And Jack, yes, our other
And
roaster.
yeah, okay. Awesome. This is so exciting. So now what makes your Exploradora different from what your stepfather built and the other coffees out there?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure we are the only coffee roastery that exclusively sources from women farmers. The reason we did that is I've had the opportunity to go to coffee origin or coffee countries, and there's been this really big movement in more women co-ops, putting women in positions of power at coffee origin, which a lot of coffee countries has not been the case. And so we saw that and felt like there was an opportunity to exclusively showcase that. So my stepdad's company, they get really great coffee from all over the world. They know who they're getting their coffee from. But we just took it a step further and decided to make it just women farms. And that way we know that we're taking that extra step to ensure that women at Coffee Country are being paid equitable wages. Because even if a coffee farm is doing really great practices, that's not always something you can confirm if it's not, just a women co-op or women farm.
So why were you so passionate about advocating and working with women uh, within this regard, right? So you really wanted to focus on that. You really wanted your whole ethos is all about supporting women in coffee.
Yeah, I
Why
think
was that important?
um I think that because I've met so many people at Coffee Origin and a lot of them have been women, and there's that kind of natural camaraderie. I think obviously I respect every person in coffee, men, female, anybody. Um but that I think as a young woman I was so inspired by these trailblazers in countries where that's not the standard, and the standard is men are always in positions of power and women really aren't encouraged to do so. So when you have these outliers that are making an effort to empower their own communities, it felt like that was what was important to show. Um, and I think just naturally how I was raised by a lot of really strong women. And so I just naturally gravitate towards sort of that orbit. And we've talked about in Exploradora showcasing other innovative farms that maybe aren't solely women, because everybody is doing really great innovative stuff in coffee. This just felt like an opportunity to just have one coffee company that really focused on that. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Exactly. But I like to hear your perspective and to be able to share that with others to showcase how people can create a niche for themselves based on their passion, their interests, and what they're building, right? So you took all that experience, you went back there, and you're like, okay, this is awesome, and I really want to get involved, but I really want to focus on women. That's
Yeah.
what's important to me, and that's my differentiator. And I think that it's just a great perspective and a great way for people to look at this, other founders, in fact, to look
I,
at this.
I think that, like, particularly in coffee, so many people are doing amazing work and they're working with really interesting people. But as a founder, you do, occasionally have to find your niche. And sometimes stuff does have to be left out of that, but it allows you to stand out. And that was our opportunity to have a space to stand out in.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you worked alongside your stepfather for a while now.
Yeah.
What do you think he'd be most proud about from, with regards to your initiative here? What would he say about you?
I don't know. I don't know if he'd say anything out loud, to be honest. No, he would. He would. I think that hopefully he has been impressed by my ability to really learn the mechanics of coffee. I think before it felt very high level. We were just doing sales, we were marketing, and now I'm to the point where I can roast. I like learn how to fix machines, and he sees me like getting, dirty in it. And I think that's really where he started gaining actual respect, is because now I can actually speak the language of coffee, and hopefully exercising a little bit more. I've already said patience, but like I was not a patient child. I was kind of fiery. And so hopefully he's seen like a little bit of a transition just in our own dynamic that he would be proud of.
I'm sure. I mean, I think parents are always proud of their kids as they're on their journey, making new accomplishments, achieving new goals.
Yeah.
and they're watching at it from like a bird's eye view sometimes, and it's wonderful to see. So, in that vein, as you work also with your mother, tell me about that. What's that like to work with your mom?
I love working with my mom. I think I got super lucky. I have an amazing mom. She's extremely intelligent, amazing work ethic, like the nicest lady you've ever met, but has really high standards. My mom has always held me and my sister to a standard of excellence because we can be that. And even in my past jobs, she's always kind of been that voice behind in my head that's like never half-ass anything. And so now that I work with her, she's still that voice in my head, but also the voice on the other line. And I think it's been cool to see. I think parent and child relationships often don't have the opportunity to move from parent child to peer,
Hmm.
which you would like to see as you become adults, but not everybody is allotted that opportunity. And what's been really cool is my mom and I have found this new respect for each other from a peer adult relationship. And sometimes just she'll still step into a mothering role when I need mothering. But from a business relationship, I think we see eye to eye on a lot of things. We collaborate really well. We sort of have the same creative visions, and there's a really strong foundation of respect as adults. That's fun to watch.
Right. I think I used to work with my mom. So a lot of that resonates. My biggest challenge was when we'd go to meetings. I didn't want to call her mom. I don't know. Is that a weird thing for you?
Yes, it is. I don't know how to get around that. How did you get around that out of
Excuse me. I
curiosity?
said, excuse me a lot. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Did you call her mom or did you call her
No,
by
I just said, excuse me. I
See,
couldn't
I'll
call her
do
Susan. That was weird too.
It's and people think it sounds forced. My little sister, like, she'll sometimes see, sometimes we do outreach on Instagram for people, and my little sister also runs some of the social media, so she'll see me do it. And there's been a couple times where I'll be like, okay, great, like my mom and I will follow up with you. And Hollis is like, my sister Hollis is like, don't say that, just say my business partner. And but it's so hard to get it out of my
I'm with
head.
you. We'll follow up with you.
Yes. I'm like really attuned in emails. I'm like my business partner. And in emails I will refer to her as Alison, even though it sounds really weird for me. But I'm like, no one's gonna take me seriously if it's like, let me
Too
ask
much
my mom for
information.
permission if I can send this to you. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I remember that too. We would sit like at a table with everybody, and I'd be like, "Excuse me," because I didn't want to say mom or Susan, but they all knew that this was my mother.
Yeah.
Like everybody knew that, So it's a weird predicament to be in,
It
right?
is it's super weird, yeah. But it is what it is. It's fun all the same. And sometimes I think other people find it endearing. A
Yeah,
lot of people are family businesses. They might
yeah.
just not say it all the time. And I think more people actually resonate with it than we think.
Did you think about that before you started it, or did it not occur to you until all of a sudden you're trying to tell people that your mom's going to follow up?
I didn't think about it until my sister called me out on it. My
So,
sister's like very businessy and like put together. She's my younger sister, but she is on her stuff, very, very serious. And so of course she's the one to like call me out on it. But
of
I
course.
would have never noticed that.
So when you guys got together and decided to co-found this company, how did you guys divvy up the roles?
They've evolved so much over time. Um, we started it 4 years ago, and it was this side hustle. And in the side hustle, it was like we get on meetings once a week, and what are we going to post on social media? I mean, that's what it started off as, and now it's like a actually fully fledged business. And I quit my job, my tech job, a little over a year ago. And when I did that, we had like a brainstorm team meeting. Like, because I was a recruiter, I wrote out position descriptions for us. I was like, this is what we'll refer to. And so she was like chief marketing, and I was technically CEO, CFO. And we kind of saw how that goes. But in a startup, which is essentially that's what it is, everybody does everything. And so it's sort of hard to continue defining those roles. I think we finally gotten to the point where we just keep allowing it to evolve.
Mhm.
So she is she's kind of she'll bring a lot of creative ideas, and then I'm typically the executor. And that's probably the best form of action for us. It was we I think it's now probably it's more like co-CEO, because we have to do it. And we've just gotten to the point too where like I'll CC her on every single thing, because when we tried to divide up the roles, there was too much time spent catching each other up.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we're a small team too. I found that CCing everybody allows also for people to pick up if somebody's sick or to respond more quickly. And that's because we're so small, right? I imagine for you similarly, you're so small that if your mom is out for a day or two and you have the answer, you can respond. But if you weren't CC'd, things get delayed,
Yeah.
missed opportunities.
Right. And holding each other accountable. Sometimes stuff will be crazy. And, when you have big teams, most people catch it. But if you just have us, you could miss an email if there's something on.
So you guys have been at this for 4 years now. When you're looking down the road, I'm wondering, what do you see for yourself in the next 5 and 10 years, respectively?
Oh, gosh. We have two avenues of business. One is restaurant. We do restaurant and cafe coffee, and then we do like corporate coffee. And my passion really is working with a lot of restaurants. I find it so much fun. You can get creative, and I just see we right now we're based. Our company is based in the South, and I really want to see us tap into the Southern market of new chefs to work with. I want to really grow that form of business, but I'd also love to grow that direct to consumer online
Mhm.
business. That is fun. And also, actually, the biggest thing for me is one of the most sustainable things you can do in coffee is commit to farms year over year. And the way you do that is you have more buying power. You have a customer who's like, I love this Rwanda coffee. I want to have this Rwanda coffee. And then the farmers that you work with, they know that they are getting that income year over year. And I want to get to the point, and right now there's about 4 farms that I've consistently bought from every year, and it's continually increased. And I want to get to a point where every single farm I'm working with,
Mhm.
they know that we're a consistent customer for them, and we're all growing together.
That sounds great, especially, I mean, it really ties into what you're doing and your impact and your give back to that charity as well, right? You're trying to give back to them, you're trying to connect with the women farmers, make sure that they consistently get the business while you grow your own.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and the more Springboard, even that relationship in the last 4 years has grown tremendously. I think there's a lot of, when we first started working with Springboard, we didn't know each other. It was like, hey, can we partner with you and donate money once a month? And duh, of course. And now they just had an event a couple weeks ago, and it was mothers who received the guaranteed income share their stories, and we were at that event. We were doing our coffee. These people are our friends now. We're intimately connected with them, and to the point where now they're going beyond guaranteed income. They recently took a cohort of mothers to Colombia, to Bogota, and now they want to do more of those trips, and they want to bring us along with them, especially if they're going to coffee country. And that's so cool to just watch general relationships evolve. That's why we did this. We did this entire thing to just connect and connect other people around the world.
So that, I mean, that just sounds like it's growing and you're integral to that growth, and it allows you to be able to give back, but also have such a great impact for what you're trying to achieve. So, I mean, props to you. That's amazing, right? Not everybody can say that they, have a vision and can execute on it. What do you think was the greatest thing that allowed you to have that vision and really clearly define it, and execute it?
Oh man, that's a great question. I I think it does come from mentors who are great executors and watching them fully fledged ideas. And for example, I have a godmother, my mom's best friend. She been a CEO of a couple companies, and she is somebody I often go to hold me accountable for a lot of stuff, making sure we're staying on our mission. And same thing, the first campaign I ever worked for, she was a visionary, and she's someone I constantly go back to make sure, hey, can you check in with me? Can you make sure that I'm like staying on top of why we started this? Because I think it can be, especially when you have a business, you get a little caught up in just selling. And frankly, that's not where my passion is. Um, and so having those different people, even outside of work, to make sure that I'm staying true to what we were doing makes me more excited and energized to continue building what Exploradora was supposed to be, and is.
Right. So that's been, so having a mentor has really kept you accountable and empowered you to continue to achieve what your goals were. So if we're talking to founders here and other founders um, that are building a business or in the throes of it and trying to be scrappy and get strategic, what would you recommend to them as it relates to looking for a mentor? Like, what might you tell them?
I would say look to the people that maybe are already in your life or someone you admire. People enjoy being mentors, I've found. People like giving advice and sharing their opinions. And I have never gone wrong in asking somebody to just get coffee with me and share their advice. And I find that every time I do it with a mentor or someone I'm seeking out as a mentor, I always leave feeling really excited and energized to keep going because it feels like, oh, this person that I admire believes in me. And that's the only reason I do it. And I think then too, they become your advocate. When they're doing other stuff, they think about you. And everybody knows, everything in the world really is about how you're connecting to other people. I hope that everything I do is also anybody I've like worked with or mentored or any of that, you want to make sure you can give back to what they're creating. So I would just say find one person, find a couple people that you can bounce off ideas with, and someone who continues to believe in you and hold you to the standard that you should be held to, that you want to be held to.
I think that's great advice because I think it's really important. And people sometimes don't want to impose, I think, but really, if it's the right mentor, they want to give back and they want to share their knowledge and their information.
Yeah.
So I think that that's great. And that's a great tip. I'm curious though, not in this conversation, but we've talked a lot about, on the show, on essential ingredients, regenerative agriculture.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what role that plays for you in the farms that you choose and in the coffee that you roast.
It's huge. There's one farm particularly that was sort of a pioneer too in regenerative farming. It's called Sopexa, based out of Nicaragua, and it plays a huge role in certain farms that I choose to source from. To be honest, I'm not the most well versed in it, but I do know that the farms that are practicing it, it makes a huge difference. And honestly, the quality of the beans that you're getting and the sustainability of the farms that you can continue to buy from. So it's when you're looking at that checklist of who I'm going to buy from, it's a lot of it's organic, it's fair trade, and it's regenerative organic farming that I will choose because they are instating that practice.
So, and why is that? Why is instituting and integrating those practices important to you, specifically around organic and regenerative?
Um, I think because it ensures that that farm will continue to thrive. And I can keep purchasing from them because they're instating really great practices. That's kind of the most I can come out of it.
I
I've
know,
been
fair
to
enough. It's
Yeah,
okay.
I've been to like some conferences where they discuss it a lot. And to me, I just find it inspiring. And I'm like, yeah, I want to work with you because you know what you're talking about. And I trust that you are working with the best practices on your farm, and your coffee is going to taste better because of it.
So
Right.
I'm wondering though, when we think about regenerative agriculture, we think about the farm and we think about, you know, it's the practices that we use for it and that it's giving back to the land, it's healthier, etc. So is that important to you specifically in your ethos for your business and that as you grow, you want to be able to integrate that more?
Absolutely. Yes. I do want to see more farms integrating regenerative farming practices. And I have seen a lot of them do it. Particularly, there's a young community of farmers that are integrating those practices into their farms. And I think they're seeing the benefits of it. So it's a huge factor in when I'm purchasing coffee, if that's something that they're even interested in. A lot of times they can't be certified regenerative farming, but they can relay that those are practices they're beginning to instate in their farms. And they know that what works best for their farm, but that has been a pretty tried and true effort.
You know, regenerative farming is kind of a newer term that people are using. And I think that so often we get caught up in what does it mean? Everybody's got a different definition, so it can be really confusing. So I know that it's important to you to incorporate, and you're still learning what this all means and how it's going to impact. But what are you hopeful for?
Well, I'm hopeful that I think, from what I understand in terms of regenerative farming, coffee country particularly is affected by climate change. And regenerative farming has been an effort to, work with that. And that it's you don't want to see farms go away because climate change is going to dramatically impact them. And what we've seen, as far as I'm concerned, with regenerative farming is it creates a more sustainable practice to allow farms to continue to thrive. And you want to, when you work with farms, you want to make sure they're going to stay around for some time.
Of course.
And just a side note, like, I think that there, again, from what I've heard in it, there is I think the younger generation is super invested in practices that do somewhat combat climate change. And this is a form of farming that like excites young people and wants young people to stay in coffee, particularly at origin. And so anything that's making people excited to stay in this world is a really great thing.
I agree. So for those folks interested in, I know in buying Exploradora Coffee, I know you mentioned that you want to impact your sales on a direct to consumer basis. Is there a way for those people watching to buy directly from you?
Yes, you can buy our coffee directly at exploradoracoffee.com. We've got 10 plus varietals. All of them are amazing. And we've got cold brew as well.
So for those folks that are interested in finding out more about where they can try it in a restaurant, um, where might that be? Is it local to you, or is it across the country?
It's sort of across the country. There's places in Arizona, there's places in Mississippi, and places in New Orleans and South
Okay.
Carolina randomly. In my newsletters, I'll often mention them. So if you like subscribe to our newsletter, I'll give updates of new places that we can be found in. And maybe eventually I'll put a little site on our page that just lists our partners.
Well, you could also put where people put their zip code in to see if it's come to their area yet.
That's a great idea. I'm going to probably write that down and do that this week.
Awesome. Wait, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Learned loving that. I loved learning about your story. So let me edit that. I loved learning about your story. I loved learning about how you work with your family and how you've integrated your core values, which are so important to giving back into the ethos of your business. So well done. That's
Thank,
totally inspirational.
thank you, Justine. I appreciate you having me and asking amazing questions. It's fun to be able to share more about it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Justine.